Discovery and dismissal. Senior xenoarchaeologist Zara Van pressed her face against the viewport of the research vessel Curious Mind, watching as scan drones swarmed around the massive derelict ships floating in the void. The ancient vessels stretched as far as her eyes could see, their dark hulls absorbing starlight like cosmic shadows. Preliminary scans complete, Dr. Van announced her assistant, a centaurian named Pell, whose crystalline skin sparkled under the ship's lights. The fleet appears to be approximately 15,000 years old. Zara nodded, her antenna twitching with excitement. As the youngest senior xenoarchaeologist in the Galactic Confederation's history, she built her career on challenging established theories. But this discovery felt different. Special. "Look at these energy readings," she said, gesturing at the holographic display. "The hull material is absorbing our scan frequencies and patterns I've never seen before. It's almost like it was designed to do exactly that." Pell finished, their crystalline features refracting light in what Zara had learned was their equivalent of a frown. The initial survey had detected over 300 vessels of varying sizes, arranged in a perfect defensive formation. Most archaeological finds showed signs of battle damage or cosmic wear, but these ships appeared pristine, as if they'd been placed here deliberately, and then waited. Her musings were interrupted by the arrival of High Commander Trixtall, the Confederation's foremost military historian. The commander's segmented exoskeleton clicked against the deck as they approached, followed by a retinue of junior officers. "Fascinating discovery, Dr. Van," Trixtall said, mandibles clicking in amusement. "Though hardly noteworthy from a military perspective, these vessels appear to rely entirely on kinetic weaponry, projectiles, and mass drivers." "How quaint." Zara bit back a retort. The High Commander's dismissive attitude was typical of Confederation military doctrine, which held that energy-based weapons and quantum shielding represented the peak of combat technology. "With respect, Commander," she said carefully, "I believe there's more here than meets the eye. The hull composition alone suggests technological capabilities far beyond." "Beyond what?" Trixtall interrupted. "There isn't a single quantum field generator or plasma cannon in the entire fleet. The civilizations that built these relics clearly hadn't even mastered basic energy manipulation. Mark them for historical preservation, and let's move on." But something wasn't adding up. Zara spent the next 3 days analyzing scan data while the Confederation's bureaucrats argued over jurisdiction. The ship's design was an engineering paradox. Their weapon systems appeared primitive, yet their hull material displayed properties that shouldn't have been possible 15,000 years ago. Late in the third night cycle, she made a breakthrough. "Pell," she called out, startling her assistant who had been dozing nearby. "Look at these power distribution networks. They're not primitive at all. They're redundant. The entire ship is designed to maintain functionality even if 90% of its systems are knocked offline." Pell moved closer, their crystalline form catching the light of multiple displays. "But why build such resilient ships if your weapons technology is so basic?" "That's just it," Zara said, pulling up more schematics. "These aren't basic weapons. The mass drivers are positioned at exactly the right angles to create overlapping fields of fire. The projectile launchers are designed to saturate an area with precisely calculated patterns. This isn't primitive technology, it's purposeful design." She was about to elaborate when the ship's emergency alert system activated. Red warning lights bathed the laboratory in crimson as Captain Mira's voice came over the intercom. "All hands, battle stations. Unknown vessels have appeared at the edge of the system. They're not responding to hails and are advancing at attack speed." Zara rushed to the bridge with Pell close behind. The main view screen showed 5 arrow-shaped vessels approaching, their hulls seeming to absorb light just like the ancient fleet they'd been studying. "Confederation vessels Stalwart and Guardian moving to intercept," reported the tactical officer. Zara watched as the Confederation's most advanced warships engaged the unknown vessels. Their quantum shields sparkled brilliantly as they launched salvos of plasma torpedoes and particle beams. The attackers didn't even attempt to evade. The energy weapons simply disappeared into their hulls. Then they returned fire. Not with energy weapons, but with a storm of hypersonic projectiles that bypassed the Confederation ship's shields completely. "Impossible," whispered High Commander Trickstall, who had joined them on the bridge. "Our quantum shielding should be impenetrable." Zara's mind raced as she watched the battle unfold. The attack pattern, the weapon design, the hull technology, it was all familiar. She pulled up the ancient fleet schematics on a nearby console, comparing them to sensor readings of the attacking vessels. "They're the same," she breathed. "The design principles are identical. Whoever built that ancient fleet knew these enemies would come. They weren't primitive at all. They were prepared." As if in response to her revelation, the sensors detected new energy signatures from the derelict fleet. One by one, lights began to flicker across their hulls, power systems dormant for 15 millennia humming to life. Zara's antenna tingled as ancient computers activated, broadcasting a message on all frequencies in a language that hadn't been heard in the galaxy for thousands of years. "Human presence DHCTE. Initiating Revival Protocol Omega. The way TGERs HVVRE2RNET." The real question wasn't who built the ancient fleet. It was why they had left it here, waiting for this exact moment. As the unknown vessels pressed their attack, Zara had a feeling they were about to find out. The rising threat. The battle unfolding before the curious mind defied everything the Confederation knew about space warfare. The Confederation's finest ships, armed with the most advanced energy weapons in known space, were being systematically dismantled by weapons that should have been obsolete millennia ago. "All vessels, full retreat," ordered High Commander Trickstall, their exoskeleton clicking rapidly in distress. "We cannot lose the curious mind and its research data." But Zara barely heard the order. Her attention was fixed on the ancient fleet, where more and more ships were powering up. Their activation sequence wasn't random. They were forming a barrier between the attackers and the retreating Confederation vessels. "Energy spike," called out the sensor officer. "The derelict fleet is. They're moving." Ships that had drifted silent for 15,000 years began to move with impossible precision. Their engines ignited not with the quantum fire of modern drives, but with brilliant nuclear pulses that seemed to ripple through space itself. "Get me a channel to Fleet Command," Zara demanded, her antenna rigid with urgency. The ancient fleet's design. It's not just similar to the attacker ships, it's specifically engineered to counter them. Those primitive weapons? They're exact opposites of our current technology. A holographic communication window opened, showing Admiral Vex of the Confederation Fleet Command. The Admiral's tentacles writhed in agitation as they absorbed the battle data. "Impossible," they stated. "No civilization could predict military technology so far in advance. These ships should be relics." Not. The Admiral's words were cut off as one of the ancient vessels engaged an attacker. Instead of the elegant energy exchanges typical of modern space combat, it was brutally efficient. The ancient ship's kinetic weapons punched straight through the attacker's hull, while its own thick armor absorbed return fire like a cosmic sponge. They didn't predict it, Zara realized, her eyes wide. They remembered it. These ships weren't built to fight future battles. They were built to fight an enemy their creators had already faced. The sensor officer's voice cracked with panic. More hostile ships detected. They're coming out of hyperspace all across the sector. Dozens, hundreds of them. Tactical displays lit up with new contacts as the enemy fleet emerged. Their arrow-shaped hulls seemed to drink in starlight, making them look like holes cut in the fabric of space itself. "We're receiving a transmission from the hostiles," reported the communications officer. "Audio only." A voice filled the bridge, speaking in a language that seemed to scrape against the mind itself. The universal translators took a moment to process it. "Your weapons are useless. Your defenses are meaningless. We are the Void Hunters, and you will feed our ASC ensign. High Commander Trixtall's mandibles clicked rapidly. Similar messages are being reported across 3 sectors. They're launching simultaneous attacks on multiple Confederation worlds. Zara rushed back to her lab, Pell following close behind. As the battle raged outside, she dove deeper into the ancient fleet's database, which was now fully accessible since its activation. Look at this, she called to Pell, pulling up technical specifications. The fleet's defensive systems aren't just thick armor, they're designed to absorb and redirect energy. And these weapon systems, she paused, her antenna twitching in amazement. They're not just kinetic weapons. They're designed to create specific resonance patterns when they impact their targets. Resonance patterns. Pell's crystalline form shifted in confusion. For what purpose? Before Zora could answer, the ship shuddered as a nearby explosion rattled the hull. On her screen, tactical data showed more Void Hunter ships arriving, their numbers growing exponentially. "We need to evacuate," announced Captain Mira over the intercom. "All personnel, proceed to emergency shuttles. Set course for the nearest safe harbor at Rally Point Echo." But Zara couldn't leave. Not yet. As her fingers flew over the console, she found something that made her blood run cold. Hidden in the ancient fleet's databanks was a star chart, showing the projected path of the Void Hunters' invasion. Their final target wasn't the Confederation capital or any of its major worlds. It was a small blue planet in an unremarkable system, a world that the Confederation had long dismissed as primitive and unimportant. "Earth. It's not random," she whispered. "They're not just attacking us. They're hunting for something, or someone." The ancient fleet's movements suddenly made sense. They weren't just defending the Confederation ships. They were positioning themselves for a fighting retreat, creating a corridor through space. A corridor that led straight to Earth. As the curious mind prepared for emergency departure, Zara made a decision that would change the course of the war. Instead of heading to Rally Point Echo with the rest of the fleet, she was going to follow that corridor. Because somewhere on that primitive world were the answers they desperately needed. The real question was, would the humans themselves remember their own legacy in time to save the galaxy? Racing to the bridge, she found High Commander Trixtall preparing to evacuate. "Commander," she called out, "I know where we need to go, and I know why those ships were left here." The commander turned, their compound eyes reflecting the chaos of battle visible through the view screen. "Explain." "They're not just ships, they're a message," Zara said, her voice firm. "A message left by humans, waiting for the day the Void Hunters returned. And if we want to survive this war, we need to deliver that message to Earth." Outside, the ancient fleet continued its dance of destruction with the Void Hunters, each explosion illuminating a truth that the Confederation had been too arrogant to see. Sometimes the most primitive-looking weapon is the most dangerous, especially when it's designed by those who know exactly what they're fighting against. Hidden legacy. The journey to Earth challenged everything Zara thought she knew about galactic history. The curious mind, escorted by 3 ships from the ancient fleet, pushed through space while battles raged across Confederation territory. The Void Hunters seemed to be everywhere, yet they were notably absent along their route to Earth, as if they were being deliberately steered away by the ancient fleet's movements. Another data cache decoded. Hell announced, their crystalline form dimmed with exhaustion after days of continuous work. "Dr. Van, you need to see this." The holographic display filled with images that shouldn't exist. Humans, 15,000 years ago, commanding vast fleets of starships, cities that stretched into orbit, technology that made current Confederation achievements look primitive by comparison. "This can't be right," High Commander Trixtall said, studying the displays. "Earth is under quarantine because they've barely achieved basic spaceflight. These records suggest they were once the most advanced civilization in the galaxy," Zara finished, "and they gave it all up. Deliberately." The records told a story that defied belief. Humanity had reached the stars long before any other current species, building an empire that spanned thousands of worlds. They had encountered the Void Hunters first, fighting a war that lasted centuries. The humans had won. Barely, but at a terrible cost. "Look at these battle reports," Zara said, scrolling through ancient logs. "The Void Hunters don't just destroy civilizations, they absorb them. Every world they consume makes them stronger, adds their technological and biological distinctiveness to their own. And humanity found a way to beat them," Pell observed, their crystalline surface refracting data streams in complex patterns. But why retreat? Why deliberately regress their entire civilization? The answer came from a personal log, written by someone called Admiral Sarah Chen, dated just before the Great Regression. "We won because we were unpredictable, because we thought differently. The Void Hunters adapt to and absorb advanced technology, but they couldn't adapt to our primitive solutions. Our victory taught us something terrifying. The more advanced a civilization becomes, the more vulnerable they are to the hunters. We can't let the galaxy advance too quickly. Someone needs to remember, to be ready, to maintain the balance. Until they return." "So they quarantined themselves," Zara whispered, "hid their true nature from the galaxy. The Confederation's policy of keeping Earth isolated. It wasn't our idea at all. They planted that suggestion in our earliest records." The ship shuddered as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Earth's solar system spread out before them, looking deceptively primitive on their sensors. But now Zara knew better, knew to look deeper. "Multiple structures detected in the Orc cloud," reported the sensor officer. "Similar design to the ancient fleet, but dormant." "More than dormant," Zara said, studying the readings. "They're waiting. This whole system is one giant warning system. The Void Hunters aren't just attacking randomly. They're trying to reach Earth before humanity can wake up." A new signal caught their attention. The ancient ships escorting them had begun broadcasting on frequencies that shouldn't have existed, frequencies that penetrated deep into Earth's surface. And something was responding. Beneath the ice of Antarctica, beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean, inside mountain ranges on every continent, structures were awakening, structures that no Confederation scan had ever detected. "They hid it all," High Commander Trickstall said in awe. "An entire civilization's worth of technology, sleeping under our sensor sweeps for millennia." But they weren't the only ones who noticed. Across Confederation space, the Void Hunters suddenly changed direction. Every ship, every fleet, every assault force turned toward Earth. The timing couldn't have been worse. Most of the Confederation's forces had been destroyed or scattered. "We have to warn them," Pell said urgently. "The humans don't even know what's coming. They think they're still a pre-spaceflight civilization." Zara studied the tactical display, watching the Void Hunter fleets converge. But something else caught her attention. The ancient fleet was moving too, gathering from across the galaxy. The ships that had defended them weren't just escorts. They were the vanguard of something much larger. "They know," she said softly. "On some level, they've always known. Those aren't just hidden bases we're detecting. They're memory triggers. The ancient fleet isn't here to warn humanity." She paused as new signals began broadcasting from Earth's surface, signals that made the ship's quantum computers stutter in confusion. "It's here to remind them who they really are." The surface of Earth lit up with activity as buried facilities activated. In orbit, satellites that had masqueraded as debris revealed their true nature. And in every major city, every military base, every scientific facility, humans were receiving information they shouldn't have had. Memories encoded in their very DNA, waiting for this moment. The real question wasn't whether humanity would remember in time. The question was, what would the galaxy think when they realized that the primitive species they'd dismissed for so long had been protecting them all along? As the first Void Hunter ships entered the solar system, that answer was about to become very clear. Awakening. From the bridge of the curious mind, Zara watched in awe as humanity shed its primitive disguise. Cities across Earth transformed as hidden technology activated. Buildings shifted, streets reconfigured, and buried facilities rose from depths where no Confederation scan had ever penetrated. Multiple quantum signatures detected. The sensor officer reported, their voice trembling. Energy readings they're beyond our scale of measurement. The transformation wasn't just technological. Across Earth, humans were changing too. Knowledge locked in their genetic code for 15 millennia was awakening. People stopped in mid-stride as ancestral memories flooded their consciousness. Engineers suddenly understood technologies their ancestors had hidden. Soldiers recalled combat techniques lost to time, and scientists grasped principles that made Confederation physics look like child's play. "Look at these readings," Pell said, their crystalline form vibrating with excitement. The humans didn't just hide their technology. They encoded it into their very beings. Every human carries a fragment of their civilization's knowledge. A transmission cut through all frequencies, originating from a facility that had emerged from beneath the Antarctic ice. The speaker's voice carried the weight of 15,000 years of preparation. "Attention all Earth Defense Forces. Operation Legacy is now active. This is not a drill." Repeat. Operation Legacy is now active. The Void Hunters have returned. All personnel report to your designated awakening centers. The time of waiting is over. High Commander Trickstall's mandibles clicked rapidly as they processed the tactical displays. The Void Hunters' advance fleet had entered the solar system, but they'd suddenly slowed their approach. "They're hesitating," the commander observed. "They recognize something." "They recognize everything," Zara corrected, studying the data streams. The humans didn't just fight the Void Hunters. They were the only species to ever defeat them. And they designed their entire regression around being ready for this moment. Across Earth, military bases transformed into launch facilities as hidden ships emerged from underground bunkers and underwater hangars. But these weren't the crude rockets the Confederation had observed. These were warships that matched the ancient fleet in design and capability, maintained in secret for millennia. The Curious Minds communications officer called out, "Multiple transmissions detected between Earth and the ancient fleet. They're synchronizing their systems." The ancient ships that had escorted them began to change. Sections of hull plating shifted, weapons systems realigned, and dormant systems awakened. They weren't just defensive platforms. They were seeds, waiting for humanity's signal to grow into their full potential. "Void Hunter fleet approaching Mars orbit," reported Tactical. "They're accelerating again. Wait, detecting massive energy surge from Earth." The surface of Mars seemed to ripple as hidden installations revealed themselves. The red planet had never been just a future colony site. It was a fortress prepared over thousands of years of secret work. "This is Earth Command to all awakened forces, a new transmission broadcast. Operation Legacy protocols are now fully active. All units, execute contingency Prometheus." The ancient fleet moved with renewed purpose, forming complex geometric patterns around Earth. Each ship's position was precise, calculated over millennia for this exact moment. Energy began to flow between them, creating a web of power that defied Confederation physics. But the most stunning transformation was happening on Earth itself. Humans were walking into awakening centers as the species the Confederation knew, and emerging as something else. Not changed physically, but awakened to their true nature. Generations of carefully designed genetic triggers were activating, restoring knowledge and capabilities that had been deliberately suppressed. "Doctor," Pell called urgently, "the humans are requesting that all Confederation observers clear the inner system. They say we won't want to see what happens next." Before Zara could respond, the Void Hunters made their move. Thousands of ships dropped out of hyperspace, their arrow-shaped forms blotting out the stars. Their voices filled all frequencies. "These elite PRS awaken, but too late, too late. Your long night cheat is made you weak. We will consume all. A single response came from Earth, in a voice that carried the confidence of a species that had spent 15,000 years preparing for this exact moment. You forgot the most important lesson from our last war. Humanity didn't become primitive. We didn't evolve. We chose to wait, to watch, to remember, and most importantly, to prepare. The ancient fleet, now fully awakened and integrated with Earth's defenses, began to move. But they weren't just ships anymore. They were part of a vast machine, a weapon system designed by generations of hidden human engineers. As the curious mind retreated to safe distance, Zara finally understood. Humanity hadn't regressed out of fear or weakness. They had orchestrated the longest military deception in galactic history. And now, after 15,000 years of patient preparation, they were ready to remind the galaxy why the Void Hunters still haunted their nightmares. The real question wasn't whether humanity could win. Humanity's return. The battle that followed redefined warfare in the minds of every watching species. From the curious mind's observation position beyond Neptune's orbit, Zara and her crew witnessed humanity's true power unleashed. The Void Hunters struck first, their energy weapons lashing out with enough power to shatter planets. But Earth's defenses didn't try to resist or deflect the assault. Instead, they absorbed it, channeling the energy through systems that had waited millennia for this moment. Energy conversion rates are impossible, Pell reported, their crystalline form pulsing with excitement. They're not just absorbing the attacks, they're using them to power their own weapons. The ancient fleet moved with terrible precision, each ship part of a greater whole. Their kinetic weapons fired in synchronized patterns, creating geometric fields of destruction that the Void Hunters couldn't adapt to. This wasn't just combat. It was mathematics made manifest, the culmination of 15,000 years of preparation. New transmission from Earth Command, announced the communications officer. They're apologizing to the Confederation. The message played through the bridge speakers. To all Confederation species, we apologize for our deception. We knew the Void Hunters would return, and we knew they would adapt to any civilization that developed along predictable technological paths. Our hibernation wasn't just for our protection, it was for yours. By appearing primitive, we kept the galaxy's technological development slow enough to prevent the Hunters from gaining too much power too quickly. High Commander Trickstall's mandibles clicked in understanding. They sacrificed their own advancement to protect the galaxy. All those times we dismissed them as primitive. They were guarding us, Zara finished. Like parents letting their children learn to walk, but staying close enough to catch them if they fall. The battle intensified. The Void Hunters attempted to adapt, their ships morphing to counter each human strategy. But humanity had spent millennia preparing for every possible adaptation. Each Hunter transformation was met with a pre-planned counter-response, springing traps 15,000 years in the making. From Earth's surface, more ships launched, not the ancient fleet's design, but something new. Hybrid vessels that combined the old knowledge with innovations developed during humanity's long wait. They moved differently, fought differently, introducing chaos theory into the mathematical precision of the battle. Your preparation is MEANGLS, the Void Hunters broadcast. We AAV consumed 1,000 civilizations. Absorb BD their geno doduleg, their power. Earth's response was immediate. That's exactly why we knew we'd win. You learn by consuming, by copying. Everything you know, you took from someone else. But humans, we learn by creating, by imagining. Every world you consumed made you stronger but more predictable. Every year we waited made us more innovative. The battle reached its crescendo. The ancient fleet, fully integrated with Earth's defenses and the new hybrid ships, executed a maneuver that defied tactical analysis. Ships moved in patterns that seemed random but were precisely calculated, creating a web of kinetic impacts and gravitational distortions. The Void Hunters found themselves caught in a trap 15 millennia in the making. Their energy weapons were turned against them. Their adaptive capabilities became a weakness, and their consumed knowledge proved useless against humanity's calculated randomness. "They're retreating," reported Tactical. "The entire Void Hunter fleet is attempting to withdraw." But humanity hadn't waited 15,000 years to allow their enemy to escape. The ancient fleet's final maneuver activated, revealing one last secret. The seemingly random movements had created a resonance pattern, transforming the solar system itself into a weapon. Space itself seemed to twist, trapping the Void Hunters in a grid of gravitational distortions. The battle ended not with a grand explosion or a dramatic last stand, but with the systematic dismantling of an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for eons. Hours later, as the dust settled, Earth broadcast one final message to the galaxy. "To all species of the Confederation, the threat of the Void Hunters is ended. We now begin Phase 2 of our plan, guiding the galaxy towards sustainable technological advancement. This time, we do it together." Zara looked at her crew, seeing the same realization in their eyes. Humanity hadn't just saved the galaxy. They had been protecting it all along. Their greatest achievement wasn't defeating the Void Hunters. It was having the patience and foresight to sacrifice their own advancement for the greater good. "Dr. Van," Pell said softly, "what do you think they mean by Phase 2? Zara's antenna twitched thoughtfully as she watched Earth's hybrid ships begin establishing new defense patterns around the solar system. "I think," she said, "we're about to learn what humanity can really achieve when they don't have to hide anymore." In the centuries that followed, the galaxy would learn a crucial lesson. Never judge a civilization by its apparent level of technology. Sometimes, the most advanced species of all is the one wise enough to wait, to watch, and to protect others from the shadows. And sometimes, the most primitive-looking weapon is the most dangerous, especially when it's wielded by a species that spent 15,000 years perfecting its use. The age of humanity had begun again. But this time, they weren't alone.